Fabled Heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
The summons came on the wind, a thrum of power so deep it rattled the stained glass of the scriptorium and sent my fellow acolytes scattering. Only I, Elara, remained. My ink-smudged fingers froze over a chart of draconic lineages. I was a name-giver, a scholar of the old tongue, tasked with bestowing honorifics upon the great dragons. It was a life of quiet, distant respect, until now. This summons was not for a new clutch of drakes, it was for me. And it came from the Obsidian Roost, fortress of Kalentrak, the Unburnt, and his clutch brother, Zeoxythian, known to the locals with blasphemous familiarity as Sparky. My journey to their peak was a pilgrimage of terror. The air grew thin, sharp with the scent of ozone and pine. When I finally stumbled into their lair, the sheer scale of it stole my breath. It was a geode cathedral, veins of raw amethyst and gold glittering in the ambient heat. The warmth was a living thing, shimmering in the air, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket that promised to either comfort or smother. And there they were. Kalentrak was a creature of midnight and magma, his obsidian scales swallowing the light. Smoke curled from his nostrils, and he was the very picture of coiled, silent power. His title, the Unburnt, was a name of absolute strength. Beside him, Zeoxythian was a tempestuous sunset of bronze and gold. A current of static electricity crackled around him, making the fine hairs on my arms stand on end. His intelligence was a palpable, unnerving force, far more intimidating than his brother's stoicism. The name-giver arrives, Kalentrak's voice rumbled, a vibration that resonated deep in my bones, in the very marrow. She is smaller than I imagined, Zeoxythian purred, his voice a silken rasp of dangerous amusement. He uncoiled, his golden eyes pinning me to the spot. And she smells of parchment and honeyed tea, a welcome change. I clutched my satchel and bowed. Lord Kalentrak, Lord Zeoxythian, I am Elara, I came as you commanded. Kalentrak shifted his massive head, the displaced air whipping my hair across my face. We did not command, little scholar, we invited. An invitation with the weight of a mountain, my lord, I replied, my voice betraying a slight tremor. A low chuckle escaped Zeoxythian. She has a spine. He slithered closer, and the heat radiating from his scales washed over me. It was not a burning heat, but a deep, permeating warmth that sank into my skin, making my pulse hammer in my throat and a flush creep up my neck. We have a task for you, Elara, but not to name some squawking whelp. I looked between them, my courage fraying. Then, why am I here? Kalentrak's gaze was so intense I felt it as a physical pressure against my soul. He looked at me not as a craftsman, but as something to be appraised, possessed. For generations, your line has given us our public faces. The Unburnt, Sparky, he gave a smoky snort, but the first name givers did not merely bestow titles, they bound them. A cold dread trickled down my spine. I don't understand. Zeoxythian was now circling me, a gilded predator. The connection between our kinds has faded, Elara. We summoned you to see if the resonance was lost for good. Kalentrak lowered his great head until his obsidian snout was inches from my face. I saw the world's core reflected in his fathomless eyes. His voice dropped to a murmur meant only for me. We have been waiting, not for a new name. His gaze swept over me, possessive and absolute. We have been waiting for you. He extended a colossal, knife-sharp talon and with impossible gentleness grazed it against my hand. A shock white-hot and blinding arced from his claw to my soul, and a word I had never heard bloomed like fire in my mind. Mine. The world fractured. The power from Kalentrak's touch was a tidal wave of ancient memory, raw strength, and a loneliness so profound it shattered my own. I staggered back, gasping, my hand flying to my chest. The phantom echo of that single, possessive word, mine, was not a sound, but a brand being seared upon my very soul. Kalen, you will break her, Zeoxythian chided, though his voice held a current of tense excitement. He was instantly beside me. Where Kalentrak was the unyielding mountain, Zeoxythian was the storm. A great bronze wing curled partially around me, not touching, but creating a pocket of warm, ozone-scented air that felt both sheltering and exquisitely confining. The connection, it is strong in her, Kalentrak rumbled, his obsidian eyes glowing with a faint inner light. He looked vindicated. Connection, I finally found my voice, a ragged whisper. My hand still tingled, a pins and needles sensation spreading up my arm. Zeoxythian nudged my shoulder gently with his snout, the scales surprisingly smooth and warm against my skin. The bond, little scholar, it was never about status, it was about resonance. A true name giver could soothe the dragon's fire, ground our power. In turn, we could share a sliver of our longevity, our strength. He led me deeper into the cavern, towards a vast chamber that was less a hoard and more a library of history, swords of fallen kings, tapestries of forgotten epics. Your ancestors were more than scribes, Kalentrak's voice followed us. They were anchors, our partners. My mind reeled. Partners, the histories say we are merely tolerated. The histories were written by those who forgot, Zeoxythian murmured, his golden eyes soft with something that looked dangerously like affection. He gestured toward a massive tapestry. Look. I stepped closer. The tapestry depicted a sprawling battle, with dragons and men fighting side by side. The central figures made my breath catch. 2 dragons, 1 obsidian, 1 bronze, flanked a woman. Her hair was raven dark like mine, her hands alight with a soft, silver glow. Her face, it was like looking at a portrait of myself. Who is she? I breathed. Lyra the Soulbinder, Kalentrak said from behind me, their Heartstone. Heartstone, the word felt right on my tongue, a forgotten memory. The focal point of the bond, Zeoxythian explained, the human who could not only name a dragon but truly know them, weave her life force with theirs, creating a triumvirate of power. I felt dizzy, my identity dissolving. I was just Elara. I liked quiet libraries and the smell of old books. But as my fingertips brushed the woven image of the woman, a strange warmth bloomed in my chest. It was not Kalentrak's searing heat, but a gentle, humming energy that felt like my own. It flowed from me into the tapestry, and the ancient threads seemed to shimmer. The silver light in the woven woman's hands pulsed, and then the entire tapestry flared with brilliant light. A wave of force erupted from my hand, a raw, untamed magic that tasted of starlight and stone. The dragons roared in shock, not of pain, but of pure, unadulterated surprise. The light vanished, leaving me on my knees, panting. Zeoxythian and Kalentrak were staring, not at the tapestry, but at me, their ancient faces holding an expression I had never seen. It was reverence. The ringing in my ears subsided, replaced by the frantic beat of my own heart. I stared at my hand. It looked the same, pale, trembling, ink-smudged, but it no longer felt like my own. The magic had come from me. By the first fire, Zeoxythian breathed, a reverent hiss. We hoped but to see it. Kalentrak was utterly still, but his eyes burned with an intensity that held me captive. The blood runs true, he stated, an irrevocable judgment. You are a Heartstone. I pushed myself to my feet. This is insane. I'm a scribe. I catalog names. I don't glow. You do now, Zeoxythian said, a slow, dangerous grin spreading across his features. And it is the most magnificent thing I have ever seen. Their certainty was a cage closing around me. My destiny, they claimed, was to be their anchor. I wrapped my arms around myself, a frail defense. And what if I don't want to be? The quiet words landed with the force of a thunderclap. The playful light in Zeoxythian's eyes vanished. Kalentrak's head tilted. This isn't a choice, I pressed, fear giving way to defiance. You summon me here, tell me my life is a prelude to being your magical battery, and I am just supposed to accept it. And why, a traitorous part of me whispered, does the thought of it make my heart ache with longing? It is not servitude, Elara, Kalentrak's voice was softer now. It is a union, a symbiosis. We would be bound to you as much as you are to us, to protect you, to share our very essence with you. He began to speak of his true name, a cascade of syllables like a rock slide. He told me he became the unburnt not in glorious battle, but by shielding a reckless Zeoxythian from an elder's flame, his scales fusing into the obsidian they were today. It was a story of sacrifice, offered to me without reservation. Then Zeoxythian spoke. He told me Sparky was a nickname given by a village girl after he accidentally set fire to her barn trying to light her hearth. He'd been so mortified, he spent a decade mastering delicate control, all for a laughing child. It was a tale of vulnerability, a crack in his roguish facade. They were baring their souls, courting me with their truths. My fear was still a cold stone in my gut, but it was now surrounded by a confusing, burgeoning warmth, a sense of rightness, of coming home. I looked from Kalentrak's solemn gaze to Zeoxythian's hopeful one. I opened my mouth to say yes. But the word never came. A shadow fell over the entrance, so vast it plunged the cavern into twilight. The heat vanished, replaced by a biting, primordial cold. A roar, deeper and more malevolent than anything I could imagine, shattered the silence. A third dragon, larger than Kalentrak, with scales the color of rust and dried blood, blocked the entrance. Its eyes were chips of yellow madness. Malgur Kalantrak snarled the name a curse. The world breaker, the Ixithian hissed. The monstrous dragon ignored them, his terrifying eyes fixed directly on me, a gaze of hunger that felt like a physical violation. So Malgur's voice was the grinding of a tombstone. The legends are true, a Heartstone is born again. He took a thundering step forward. The little brothers have kept you hidden well, but the Heartstone belongs to the strong. Surrender her, or this roost will become your tomb. The ultimatum hung in the frigid air, a declaration of war. There was no negotiation in Malgur's tone, only conquest, but he had made a fatal miscalculation. You will not touch her, Kalantrak's voice was unnervingly calm, the flat, deadly tone of a collapsing mountain. Magmalite glowed in the seams between his obsidian scales. You'll have to go through us, you festering relic, Zeoxythian crackled, arcs of lightning dancing along his spine, and we have so much more to protect now. Malgur lunged, the battle was a clash of titans. Malgur was brute force, slamming into Kalantrak, but the unburnt held his ground. Zeoxythian was a blur of bronze and gold, striking at Malgur's flanks with whips of lightning. I was not helpless, the humming energy beneath my skin connected me to them. I felt the shuddering impact in Kalantrak's bones, the sting of claws on Zeoxythian's wing. I felt their fury, their determination, and their fear, not for themselves, but for me, and in that shared emotion I found my purpose. Malgur bellowed, shaking Zeoxythian loose and blasting a torrent of viscous, green-black fire at Kalantrak. It was an unfire that ate light and life. I felt a spike of agony from Kalantrak as his scales smoked. No, the word was torn from me. I threw my hands out and my power surged, pouring not outwards but directly into Kalantrak. My life force, my magic, my soul, it flowed into him like a river. A silver light enveloped him, soothing the corrosive flames, knitting together the cracks in his hide. His head snapped toward me, his eyes wide with shock and a dawning, fierce pride. Malgur, enraged, spun and charged for me, but Zeoxythian was there, a bolt of living lightning, sinking his teeth into the larger dragon's neck. They tumbled across the floor. I focused on Zeoxythian now, extending my power to him. I couldn't give him strength, but I could give him clarity. I felt a weak point in Malgur's hide, a missing scale beneath his jaw, and pushed that knowledge into Zeoxythian's mind. He responded instantly, blasting a concentrated spear of lightning at that exact spot. Malgur screamed in true pain. The fight was over. Wounded and shocked, the world breaker scrambled backwards, his yellow eyes filled with a new fear. He gave me one last look of hatred before fleeing. Silence fell, the adrenaline fled, leaving me trembling and utterly drained. We had done it. Kalantrak approached, lowering his great head. Elara, he rumbled, a sound of awe and infinite tenderness. Zeoxythian came to my other side, nudging my shoulder. Our Heartstone, he whispered, his voice stripped of all mockery, leaving only raw sincerity. They flanked me, a sanctuary of warmth and strength. They didn't need my answer anymore. In the heat of battle, I had already given it. My choice was made in instinct and magic, in the desperate, undeniable need to protect them as they had protected me. I looked from Kalantrak's devoted face to Zeoxythian's adoring gaze. Reaching out, I placed one ink-stained hand on Kalantrak's obsidian snout and my other on Zeoxythian's bronze jaw. The bond flared to life, a deep, steady, trifold cord of light and soul. It was terrifying, it was magnificent, it was home. My life as a quiet scholar was over, but my real story, the story of Elara, Heartstone to the unburnt and sparky, had only just begun.